Topping today's news, a former Speaker of the House of Assembly passes today. The former Prime Minister describes the capital as a gunman's town. The court system gets a new Chief Justice, and an American poacher allowed to leave the country without prosecution. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jareno Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. Thanks for joining us. Former Free National Movement Cabinet Minister and House of Assembly Speaker Vernon Simonette passed away today at the age of 84. The official opposition in a statement this afternoon confirming as much as Opposition Leader Michael Pintard expressed condolences on Mr. Simonette's passing. In his statement, Mr. Pintard says the FNM is saddened to learn of the passing of the FNM champion, describing Mr. Simonette as a statesman who was beloved nationally by people of all political stripes, seen as fair and balanced in his commentary, and although affable, was regarded as a competent, serious, and attentive to the needs of those that he served. The late Vernon Simonette was born in Inagua, where he served as an executive at Morton Salt before successfully contesting the Inagua seat in the 1982 general elections. When the two parliamentary seats were combined in the southern Bahamas to create Mical, the new seat was also secured by him for the FNM. Mr. Simonette served as Speaker of the House of Assembly from 1992 to 1997 and carried out his duties in an atmosphere of goodwill while maintaining an orderly and courteous character. As a diplomat, he served the nation as a non-resident ambassador to Costa Rica, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama. Mr. Pintard extending condolences on behalf of the official opposition to Mr. Simonette's wife, Phyllis, his children, his family, and friends, and may he rest in peace. It seems like a gunman's town out there. That is what the former Prime Minister, Dr. Hubert Minnis, says as he joins the chorus of Free National Movement in calling on the government to take action to tackle the increase of violent crimes in the Bahamas, particularly here in the capital. Dr. Minnis, in the lower chamber on Wednesday, contends that it appears to be a gunman's town in New Providence, as he further suggests the country needs a strong and focused leader as crime in the country is worsening.
Last week, there was killing after killing and shooting after shooting. New Providence appears as if it is a gunman's town, with Davis administration appearing clueless as to how to address the problem. This year has been a bloody one in our capital. The media reports that there have been 75 murders in 2022. with most of them occurring in New Providence. There were a record number of murders in March, and at this pace, there may be another annual murder record this year, surpassing the grim total of 2015.
The Killarney Member of Parliament also took a swipe at the Minister of National Security, Wayne Munro, calling comments made earlier this week by the Minister, Minister Munro, totally unacceptable. Mr. Munro advised Bahamians to brace for more police shootings as the police beef up resources to tackle crime. And while he acknowledges police have the right to use legal force to protect their lives or the lives of members of the public, Dr. Minnis suggests that a minister who makes such a statement obviously should not be in charge of national security when the country is having such dilemma.
The law prescribes when deadly force can be used. Deadly force can only be used by law enforcement within the scenarios set out in the law. We need more officers on patrol. We need patrols to be more consistent. However, Mr. Deputy, the administration must be careful that its rhetoric does not create an atmosphere in which excessive force occurs indiscriminately. Rather than loose talk, that is dangerous. This administration needs to come up with a real plan to prevent crime and to swiftly punish violent offenders who are determined to harm others. Thus far, the governing side is failing miserably.
Dr. Minnis says that right-thinking Bahamians can see that the Davis administration has no plans as to how to address the crime crisis, noting that week after week and month after month, New Providence gets more unsafe with the elected government doing nothing that we can see to combat the problem. As of July, murders are up 30% from the same time period from the previous year. The Cabinet Office has announced a recommendation by the Prime Minister to the Governor General of a new Chief Justice to the Supreme Court. Prime Minister Philip Davis has recommended Justice Ian Winder be appointed to head the Supreme Court. This recommendation has been made in consultation with the Leader of the Opposition. In a statement last evening, the Cabinet Office noted that Justice Winder will succeed Chief Justice Sir Brian Moree, QC, who will retire effective August 4th. Justice Winder has served as a justice in the Supreme Court since July 1st, 2014, and was also appointed judge of the Court of Appeal in the Turks and Caicos Islands in February of 2020. He studied at the University of the West Indies and was called to the Bahamas Bar in May of 1995 and the Bar of the Turks and Caicos in November of 2008. Prior to his elevation to the bench, Justice Winder practiced extensively at the public and private bars. He also served as a member of the full-time faculty of the Council of Legal Education at the Eugene DePuy Law School. The Cabinet statement also noting that Justice Winder demonstrated long-standing commitment to the rule of law, qualifications, experience, and achievements will be integral to improving the administration of justice in the interest of the Bahamian people. The Bahamas National Trust is determined to show that it is extremely serious about protecting the natural resources of the Bahamas. However, following a poaching incident in the Exuma Keys Land and Sea Park by an American citizen, their efforts to bring the poachers to justice have been seemingly thwarted by police officers on Grand Bahama. We hear more on this story in this next report. On Friday, July 1st, the Bahamas National Trust, the BNT, apprehended an American pleasure craft in the Exuma Keys Land and Sea Park that was suspected of poaching. Upon boarding the vessel, their suspicions were confirmed. On Wednesday, Eric Carey, Executive Director of the Bahamas National Trust, explained the events of the situation.
We caught some poachers, what we consider to be red-handed, in their boat with lobsters. One of them buried, meaning it had eggs, so an atrocious act. Caught them red-handed, processed them, took them back to their big vessel, and advised them that it's not in their best interest to flee because they could be pursued in the U.S. They took it upon themselves to flee from the park. With the support of the police and RBDF, I will give them full credit, and the U.S. Coast Guard, a lot of pressure was put on them, and they eventually were forced to turn themselves in. We flew the evidence with our team under constant care to Grand Bahama, presented it to the police, worked with them on the relevant sections of the BNT Act that they should be charged with.
Mr. Carey went on to explain the frustration of the members of the Bahamas National Trust when they were advised on Monday that the suspects were released from police custody pending further investigation. Additionally, he says the police at the Grand Lucayan Police Station on Grand Bahama refused to confirm whether they intended to charge the suspects after further investigation or whether they are free and clear to leave the country.
Good cooperation with the police, we thought, until it reached the point where, sadly, we were informed that the police have decided to let the people go. We could not ascertain from the police, because they wouldn't tell us, what does let them go mean? Will you pursue them further for prosecution, or are they free to go because you won't prosecute them? We could not discern that. The latter would be atrocious as far as we're concerned, because these people were caught dead to rights. They should be given their opportunity to go before the courts, and if found guilty, they should be punished. And that punishment should be a deterrent to others who might be inclined to think about poaching in a national park or breaking a fisheries law. It should send a message to them that the Bahamas is very serious about its wildlife enforcement laws.
Mr. Carey says what is also disturbing is the decision to allow the poachers to leave the country without penalty does not support the government's position on protecting our natural resources. Further, Mr. Carey says he believes it boils down to a poor decision by officers at the Lucayan Police Station.
I would say that the decision to not prosecute them does not, in my opinion, fall in line with what the government is saying and, quite frankly, doing. The government has created the BAHWEN, the Bahamas Wildlife Enforcement Network, We are working really closely with them. We use that network to get the word out. You know, that agency was announced recently by the Honorable Minister of National Security. We fully support the government. We work closely with them. This one flies in the face of that. So I don't think that what happened is a government policy. I think it just was an individual decision by a police officer, a senior police officer, who, for whatever reason, we've not been given the reason, decided that he or she will not pursue prosecution. And very disappointing, because it flies in the face of us protecting our environment, flies in the face of what the Prime Minister is saying globally.
Going further, the Bahamas National Trust will no longer need to rely on the Royal Bahamas Police Force to prosecute, and they will also be able to collect fines on behalf of the government after the bylaws were officially gazetted into Bahamian law on Monday, July 4th. Dozens of taxi drivers assembled at Loyola Hall this morning for the long-awaited distribution of new taxi plates. This after Ministry of Transport and Housing revealed that some 90 taxi plates were inactive. In an update to the public, the ministry officials said that the publication made by the Road Traffic Department was a proactive decision to bring about order and accountability to the registration and distribution of taxi plates. Minister of Transport and Housing, Jobeth Kobe Davis, told reporters that following her meeting with the taxi and luxury union leaders, her ministry thought of the idea to bring some form of relief for taxi drivers.
Both the taxi union president and delivery union president have met with me on a number of occasions. I just wanted them to explain exactly the background of how we got to this place where persons were in the business as entrepreneurs, but then still technically not self-employed, because they didn't have their own plate, and what came with that. So they spoke to me some of the issues that persons were faced with by not being assigned their own plate that actually went to their financial situation and the makeup of their home and how they're able to grow their business. And so I just thought of ways that we can assist persons and get some controls back in place on how these plates are managed and maintained and issued through Road Traffic Department, as well as a partnership with both the taxi and livery union, and how we could further assist.
With a similar process to this having already begun on several family islands, including Grand Bahama, Abaco, and Eleuthera, an assessment was made by the Ministry of Transport that there were over 200 taxi plates to be leased, but in a streamlined process to avoid an oversaturation in the industry, says Kobe Davis.
We got approvals to be able to issue more, but then under a streamlined process, so it doesn't flood the industry and persons are still able to make a good income from it and still be able to survive. And so we're not just going to be issuing carelessly. So today they were asked to bring a number of documents with them so that we can go through a vetting process. They can fill in an application, and then we can begin to process some of the plate numbers. We're specifically really looking for persons who have been in the industry for 10, 15, 20 years and have been leasing. Want to give them their freedom today and give a little bit more empowerment to them.
JCN News team got a chance to speak with one of the taxi cab drivers who says the move is encouraging and shines a light on the future and the growth in their taxi industry.
First of all, I salute the ministry for allowing Bahamians to be empowered, to be self-sufficient and self-reliant. And the reason being, the cost for most taxi drivers to operate a taxi, especially in a climate where we're trying to rebound and to try to come back and meet mortgages and try to find school fees, I think this is a great liberation for many Bahamian individuals. So I salute the ministry for doing this and availing themselves of whatever political agendas and making it available to everyone.
And the National Insurance Board, NIB, has taken note of a public statement made on Wednesday, July 6, in relation to the operations of the NIB and certain properties owned by the National Insurance Board. With respect to NIB operations, the public is advised that no decision has been made at this time to increase the retirement age from 65 to 67. NIB further advises that while the reserves of the NIB has grown over the life of the fund and now stands at $1.5 billion, the reserves are currently in a state of decline, principally because the amount of benefits paid annually have exceeded the amount of annual contributions incoming from 2016. The NIB statement said, given the current structure of the Social Security program, this trend will continue. It said for the fiscal year ended December 2021, the benefit payments to the public exceeded the contributions income by $70 million. NIB also advises that the suggestion that NIB provided a bailout for the Bank of the Bahamas is totally unfounded. With regard to properties owned by the National Insurance Board, the public is advised as follows. During the period 2007 to 2014, NIB acquired 5 properties at a purchase price of $6.6 million for development and ultimate use of various government departments. The statement says, as a result of recent trespassers accessing the properties and causing damage, NIB found it necessary to place security guards at the properties. The NIB also refutes any claim that the properties have been used by or for the benefit of officials or employees of the National Insurance Board. NIB says it is also absolute fantasy to say that NIB obtained the properties from politicians or paid monies to politicians for the properties. The NIB requests that members of the public verify the accuracy of information before making and repeating false and unfounded statements. We'll take a break here, and we'll be right back after these commercials.